What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition, the first no-cut edition of the Against the Grain, Reading the Grain podcast, the third and final part of the three-part Awesemo Golf podcast series. Thank you all for coming and joining, and we've got a special time. We've obviously gone through COVID for the last since March here, so coming up on 4 months, and it's been a long time without sports. Of course, we've had golf for just over a month and a half now, which has been great, but we're getting all the sports back. MLB, maybe a little hiccup, but it looks like they're going to be able to come through it. The NBA's bubble is starting also tomorrow. So if you've been interested in getting into some DFS NBA, of course, there's some millionaire makers going off for only a $4 buy-in. There's expected to be some pretty good overlay in them. So perfect time to join Awesemo Plus on that side if you haven't by using promo code BUBBLE. So the NBA is back, and you can get your first month of Awesemo Plus NBA for 50% off when you use promo code BUBBLE at checkout. That's $25 for 31 days of Awesemo's leading NBA DFS projections, ownership projections, boom bust tool, and so much more. You better hurry, though, because this offer is only valid for the next couple of days. So check out Bubble here. Now, though, luckily for us, it hasn't really affected us golf fans, I should say. It hasn't really affected the prize pools. Now, granted, there's no millionaire maker, but for the most part, outside of the millionaire maker, every other contest in which you'd want to play in has remained the same. The $5 is still offering $50K to first. The $500 is still offering over $100K to first. The $200 single entry, still $100K to first. Plenty of action going around, so good to see that they're not taking their PGA product down as other sports come back. Now, granted, the millionaire maker, of course, has come down, but we're going to get it right back next week for the PGA Championship. However, this week, so it's a $25 buy-in, so also the highest buy-in we've seen for this level. So the amount of entries is below 100,000. We're at around 80-ish thousand entries, so that's pretty good. And what we're going to do here in this podcast is try and get you a good lineup, a unique lineup, and one that provides some good positive variance. So, first, before we do, we're going to just really quickly review last week's Millionaire Maker. Then we're going to give you Awesemo's top 10 projected golfers for the week before going and breaking it down by pricing session. So last week's Millionaire Maker, it was a crazy one. Really crazy turn of events. Richie Werenski in the final group birdied the 18th hole to go from a tie from 11th to a tie for third. And in doing that, he had the exact same amount of points as Charles Howell, and at the exact same price. So two lineups were already, it was already duplicated. It was a single bullet and an MME guy. They had Howell, and one other guy had the exact same five guys, except for instead of Howell, they had Werenski, and when he made that birdie, it was a three-way tie for first, a brutal stretch. But hey, that's how it happens. So we had a three-way tie, first time we've seen that in quite a while. Okay, let's go on to Awesemo's top 10 this week, projected owned, and really it's not going to surprise too many people likely. Rory McIlroy, number one, as it just seems like golfers are ready to trust him again, maybe on a course that really rewards ball striking. They expect it to come back fully for the most part, and we've seen some flashes of it, of course, over the past 6 weeks. Next, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Webb Simpson, Ty Hatton in only his third start back, Patrick Reed, Hideki Matsuyama, Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, and Bryson DeChambeau. Of course, if you want to see what those projections are, and of course the entire field of only 78 golfers here for the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational, of course, this week, go ahead and join our Awesemo Plus side if you're not already done so. And if you are not, this is a great time to do it. I mentioned at the top of the show, we've got NBA coming back tomorrow. We've, of course, got a hot and heavy PGA schedule starting with this week. We got a major next week. We got a major 4 or 5 weeks after that. So just a lot of great golf to be played and great fields to be had. So if you're not on the plus side, great time to join. And we've got an Awesemo promo code. If you use promo code RESTART when you're checking out, you're going to get the entire offering of Awesemo Plus, all of the sports, including all the esports, for just $45 for the month. You're going to get Awesemo's leading DFS projections, tools, and content for all of it and more. So celebrate the return of sports with this great deal. You won't find a better value anywhere else. This offer is valid through August 3rd, so a couple more days you get on that one. All right, let's go into each section and break down a couple of golfers and a couple of notes that I had from this week. So above 10K, we've got 5 golfers, so pretty standard, I guess, for WGC and a half-field event with only 78 golfers. It looks like Rory, as we said at the top, is going to be number 1. I don't expect anyone to get below 10%. However, I will say that Bryson DeChambeau had been trending lower in terms of his ownership anyway, while being priced at 11K, outside of course, the win that he had where he was clearly the best player in that field, the Rocket Mortgage Classic there. Excuse me. He could get close to 10%, and in single entries and limited entry contest, he could certainly dip even lower. Also, his course history here is rather terrible. Now, granted, he's a much different golfer than he was in years past, but I think all of those factors could lead, again, in your limited entry contest to very low ownership there. I think the other guys, pretty standard before we move on to the 9 to 8K section. I think the other 4 guys here, said Rory's going to be top, as I already mentioned. I think the other 3 guys probably come in between 15 and 20%. I even think Rahm, I have him projected right around 15, and Thomas and Cantlay at 17. So not too much variation between the 3 of them. Okay, now we move on to the 9 to 8K section. We got 20 golfers here, and because it's a WGC, it is really stacked. I mean, we've got basically the rest of the top 10 in the world that weren't already mentioned, and a bunch of other great players. I expect, though, we're still going to get plenty of guys at or under 10%, at least 5 or 6 this week. There's going to be a ton of ownership here, obviously, in these 20 guys. It's going to average over 10% per golfer, well over it. Probably 250%, maybe even up to 300%, so half of the total ownership given at allocation of 600 could come from this section here. Xander Schauffele, 9,800, likely to lead it. Webb Simpson also going to get a lot of looks, has some okay history here, 15%. Patrick Reed, Hideki Matsuyama, certainly in a value price section here with guys that can make a ton of birdies, which of course is vital here in a no-cut event. Then Ty Hatton, 9,700. So he comes in, of course, off of back-to-back top 5s in his only 2 starts since the restart. And then, of course, before the restart, he had just won the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So obviously, he has figured something out in his game. 9,700 though, so 15% ownership there. Gary Woodland, Tony Finau also carrying that similar ownership with Victor Hovland, 9,400 this week. I don't know that he's going to get above 15%. That seems rather pricey for him. Maybe that's me hoping that it won't get there, as I think it's a good thing that they priced him high, because I do like his game for this week. Tommy Fleetwood coming in right around 13%, coming off the miscut where he putted terribly. So maybe gamers not ready to quite give him the nod yet, as it was just his first week back. Daniel Berger's course history moved him all the way up to $9,600 this week. So I think you're going to get 10% ownership on him or thereabouts. Matt Fitzpatrick, the same thing. Then you've got some interesting games with Colin Morikawa, 9,500. He's been projected around 12% every week and ended up trending 14 one week. I think it'll probably end up right around there. I think 9,500 is a fair price for him. Koepka, you've got the legion of Koepkas that will certainly continue to play him, especially at 9,200. Then I think you're going to get the remaining 5 or 6 guys right around 10%, and certainly the last 2 under 10%. So Abraham Answer's form has cooled off quite a bit. Jason Day, again, he's been playing great, but he looked injured when playing and coming in the top 10 in back-to-back weeks at his home course. I think that gamers probably fade him this week. Ricky Fowler just hasn't looked himself. Dustin Johnson, speaking of not looking himself, since his win, has shot 80, 80, 78 to withdraw. Can't expect more than 10% of the gamers are going to pick him. Then comes Billy Horschel, who actually could be a rather decent play this week. But he's maybe he's a little high-priced. I only have him projected at 10%. I feel like that could end up coming higher. I feel like he ends up getting chalky when people believe he's in form, and certainly could be the case here. So, again, a lot of great options. I don't expect anyone to get over 20%, not even Xander Schauffele. guess maybe Hideki Matsuyama in certain circumstances could go there since we don't have to worry about the cut, but I don't think so. So I'm pretty evenly spread with how heavy the field is. Okay, let's move on to the 7K range, where we've got the lowest amount of golfers we've had in a while, 16, a total ownership of under 10% per golfer. We've got Sung J M, the cheapest price he's been in a while, along with Paul Casey. I expect those guys to be the heaviest owned. I think they'll get over 15%. I've got them projected under right now. At least that's what it says in the Against the Grain article and in my model. But I believe I think that those will end up trending higher. When I'm building out my lineups, I'm finding myself in a lot of places in this range, and I'm more comfortable taking Paul Casey and Sung J M and a guy like Joaquin Niemann than I am, say, a guy like Kevin Na and Kevin Kisner in this type of field. Now, granted, Kevin Na and Kevin Kisner will be 6 or 7% owned, won't be highly owned. Bubba Watson, Danny Willett, Henrik Stenson, and Michael Thompson all also coming in at 5% or less. Henrik Stenson certainly would seem cheap if he was playing at his best, but we haven't seen him in quite a while. It'll be his first start back since the hiatus, so I don't expect many people to be ready to just pay $7,600 for him, especially when we know we have somebody like Paul Casey right there at $7,800, who we know just can't putt the first couple of weeks or can't play on and around the greens. Even a guy like Bubba Watson has been fantastic with his ball striking. Probably rather play him at $7,100 than Henrik Stenson at $7,600 at this point, especially that it's a no-cut event. All right, lastly, we've got the 6,000. This is below 7,000 or 6,000 golfers. We've got 33. Total ownership of maybe around 4% per golfer. So pretty much if you like anybody here, even though it's a no-cut event, still have plenty of opportunity to get a lot of guys under 5%. Got Brendan Todd coming in as one of the highest owned as golfers look for some stability. Along with Louis Oosthuizen, who has really not performed all that well since coming back. He's made, most of the cuts, not all of them. But at 6,800 certainly is going to look at as some value there. Matt Wallace is coming in off back-to-back good weeks. I expect him to get close to 10% this week. Then we've got Shane Lowry, who, man, he couldn't putt last time out. His irons looked good. His ball striking looked good. He's going to come in probably around 6 or 7%. Along with Ryan Palmer, Byung-Hyun Ahn, Joel Damon, Ches Reavie, Brant Snedeker, Cameron Champ, all getting around 5 to 10%. A lot of these guys are because, remember, it's a no-cut event, so the risk tolerance and risk appetite for gamers is a lot heavier this week, trying to really build out 4 guys that they believe are going to come in the top 10 and just plug in 2 guys here that they expect to get, honestly, a lot of points. That's how WGCs have worked. When you look at the point differential between 11th place and 25th place, it's only 4 or 5 points. So that's only 1 or 2 birdies. So if you get the guy right down here, 1 or 2 of them that score well this week, make a lot of birdies, similar to like Brian Harmon last week where he had 26, you certainly have a lot better chance to cash. Of course, getting 6 in the top 10, of course, would still be the ultimate goal, but you don't necessarily need it because everybody's getting 6 of 6 through, so there's not that premium there. Premium on birdies made, of course. So that's why you'll see a lot of higher ownership in this range on guys that, normally we wouldn't see. There's 33 golfers. Normally we wouldn't see 33 total get over 1% in a normal week below 7K. So this week I expect everybody to get over 1%. Even Jazz Janawatanan, I expect him to even come in around 1.5%, 2% as people just look to try and differentiate their lineups as much as they can with that risk tolerance. A couple of other guys that I know will definitely be under 5% owned though is Sung Kang, Tyler Duncan, Matt Jones. Hao Tong Lee even likely to come in under 5%. Victor Perez, Cameron Smith, Robert McIntyre, his first time coming out since the break. Expect him to be under that. And I believe a couple of other guys are going to fit that bill as well. Maybe a couple of ownership to Bernd Wiesberger, who had a nice bounce-back week at the 3M Open last week. And Cameron Champ, I expect around 5%. So a bunch of names there and a bunch of names to choose from. 33 And it really is a different week in terms of how you build your lineups with it being a no-cut event. And I also love the fact that it's a no-cut event right before the major. I think that'll really give us an opportunity to take a look at the guys for 4 consecutive rounds and measure where their game is going into the first major of the year. So before we get on out of here, this week, I want to turn our attention lastly to SuperDraft because it's a little bit of a different strategy that I'm aiming for this week. So I want to thank them, of course, the sponsor of the show. So if you haven't tried out SuperDraft, it's a great time to do so this week, offering $2,500 to first place for their long drive contest. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team, which definitely should include Spieth and Morikawa and Cantlay this week. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offering contests right now for PGA, MLB, NASCAR, MMA, gonna be NBA very soon, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft using promo code Awesemo10, and you get $10 free on your first deposit of 10 or more, and $20 free on your first deposit of 100 or more. Download it in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Okay, how I wanted to handle this today, a little different, is I wanted to go to the top of the board. Since their lowest multiplier this week is 1.35x, with the field, of course, being half as big as it normally is. I wanted to go to the 1.1, so towards the top end of the spectrum. I want to point out a few guys that I know are going to be low owned just because they're where they're priced versus their odds and versus their other sites' prices. I expect golfers to just, instead of clicking on Eric Van Rooyen at 1.1%, will likely just click on Gary Woodland, Mark Leishman, Paul Casey. So, with that being said, or Dan Berger, who's also at that price. So with that being said, I think you can find somebody like Eric Van Rooyen, Kevin Na, to be very low owned at their multiplier this week, as well as somebody like Bubba Watson and Matthew Wolff at 1.1. Then you have golfers like Jordan Spieth also there at 1.1x. So a lot of guys that I believe will likely pick when gamers are going to fill out their lineup in this range, they're likely going to turn to Gary Woodland, Victor Hovland, and may not even go there, may not even go to 1.1x with Xander Schauffele and the alike at 1.05. So we know that Van Rooyen's not going to be highly owned or not. So try and get some leverage there if you're making a couple of lineups for the $15 long drive this week. Try to get those guys in there. I really think that you'll be able to get some leverage there. So thank you so much for coming and listening to my Against the Grain, Reading the Grain podcast. Maybe I went into too many tangents this week. We're at about 17 minutes, which is rather long for this one. But I hope you all enjoyed it. And, of course, if you're wanting a little bit more information, some lineup building strategy or more, come check out the Live Before Lock show with Ben Raza and I tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel. So until then, everybody, thanks so much for coming by, and we'll see you on the other side. Cheers.